Good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it on our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. Tonight's recap will start on page XXVI, though we work out our solution, and will end on page XXVIII, growing up among them. And our study tonight will start on page XXVIII, where it says men and women drink, and it will end on page XXX at continue to fight. And do we have any announcements?
Hi family, my name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. Good to be with all of you tonight. Glad you are all here, and welcome to anyone that is new. We are very grateful to have you and hope that you will keep coming back. Area 64 Assembly this weekend here in Tennessee, and even though I'm no longer GSR for this group, I will give a DCM report to the GSR and to the group, so it will be coming out in email to you probably within the next week or two. One of the ways that we communicate in this group is by email, and if you are not a home group member and you would like to become one, all you got to do is send Trish your information and we will get you signed up as a home group member, and you can do all the fun stuff that these pickle people do. So glad to have you all. Welcome.
Thank you, Jamie. Terry?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study. To prepare for our Big Book Study, let's focus by having a 3-minute moment of silence, followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing as not to distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. A friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We'll call on you in the order hands are raised.
From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God and let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study. Let's bring in those cute little monks. Let's have our fog light prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
Okay, let's have our secretary report. Take it away, Donald.
Hey, good evening. My name is Donald, and I am the Gandalf for the Red, and I am your recovered alcoholic secretary. And I've asked Jim F. to read the recovered statement, and we read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify it as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Jim.
Jim F., recovered alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered, but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime, but we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you, Jim. That was good stuff. And thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday night starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for about an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We ask that you all be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our big book study seriously. Because of that, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a big book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as followed. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapse, and the remainder who stayed on with AA showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time?
Welcome, Becky.
I see Becky. Welcome, Becky.
Hi, Becky.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me.
And the recovered alcoholics. And guess what, Becky? These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week? I see Stephanie out there with her hand up.
Hey!
Steph, you got to disconnect audio on one of your devices.
I only have one. I'm having a very strange Zoom experience. So I'll just say tomorrow I'll be 5 years sober.
Hey, congratulations.
Congratulations.
And we'll have your chip for you next week.
All right, congratulations. If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by Buzzard Mail. Recovery time is questionable. Does somebody have open? That's Trish has got hers open. Okay. Because I get feedback too and stuff. Please remember to practice our seventh tradition by donating to the group address Venmo or group address Venmo or PayPal posted in chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Trish, to interrupt for just a second, if you will take and remute everybody and then you and Terry unmute again, that might take care of the feedback problem.
Okay, and Terry, you want to take the next section?
I sure do. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself, nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 4. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 5. Please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. And come on in, Billy.
Hi everybody, I'm an alcoholic. My name's Billy, and Tradition 5 says each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. The long form says each Alcoholics Anonymous group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose: that of carrying its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. I have been blessed that my original home group and every succeeding home group that I've had was not conflicted with problems other than alcohol, other than the occasional dust up over problems other than alcohol and self-identification of such things, and most of the time it settled down pretty quickly, and that was a blessing, because newcomers don't need to see old-timers directing and being big bosses. They need to see a united front of our problems with alcohol. Which is why we have both closed and open meetings, because sometimes open meetings can get a little wild, but closed meetings are always focused on how we don't drink one day at a time. I don't want to say our problems with alcohol, because the goal is to not have a problem, to be clean and sober. And sorry, I just did it. Whoops. To be sober, joyous, and free, which brings the happiness of being happy, joyous, and free. We're sympathetic to other things, but we can't get waylaid in them. So, I don't have much else to say tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Billy. Okay, that ain't in the book, and that's going to be Larry volunteered today. We heard a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What follows is one of the things we often hear, along with what the Big Book has to say on the subject. So, Donald, Page 156, no, Larry, sorry. Page 156, paragraph 3.
Yes, I'm Larry. It says, both saw that they must keep spiritually active.
Ah, I heard the must there. Okay, thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
Okay, in order to stay focused as we study the big book, we use the big book study guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we're going to start our recap on page XVIII, which will be read tonight by Bill, followed by our study portion, which will be read by Lisa. After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back at our study portion that's going to be read by Lisa. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we're going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished and to please wrap up your thoughts.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, like with your sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group. Terry, you want to give this a shot?
Oh, no.
Okay. So how we arrived at this point?
No.
We are in our 5th year of being a group, and we are in our 4th season of going through the book. And we don't just randomly open the book each week and say, hey, what are we going to study tonight? We start reading on the title page where we find our first promise, how thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And then we read through all the Roman number pages, the preface, the forwards, the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, all the way up through page 164. And we read them line by line so that we can get a deeper understanding of what the whole book and what each section is saying. When we get to the end at page 164, we then also study Dr. Bob's Nightmare in the same format, and we also study the traditions. And then we end up week number 96 with the spiritual experience, appendix 2, which we're referred to 3 times during the study, but then we close out our study with the appendix as well. And then when we get to week 96, we cycle all the way back and we start back at week 1 again. So we are on week number 7 in our 4th time of going through the book. And each time we go through it, I find new things that either I didn't see before or maybe I understand them in a different way. So, which just shows that it's very important to just keep reading in the book and stay in the book.
Well done. Okay, before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so we can put it on our website. Okay.
So, Jim, could you come on in with our recap, please? Or no, Bill. So I'm sorry. Bill is doing our recap.
Bill Alcoholic. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he has then a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. The doctor writes, the subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country, treating alcoholic and drug addiction. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. We doctors have realized for a long time that some sort of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. What with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital, and while here he acquired some ideas that he put into practical application at once. Later, he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgivings, we consented. The cases we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness of these men as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. He believed, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. If any feel that as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us a while on the firing line, see the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel, after many years of experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them.
Thank you, Bill. And Lisa, come on in with our study for tonight.
Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it's admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented. Unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems, he despaired over ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. The only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal, "Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me." Faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Although he gives all that is in him, it often is not enough. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. Though the aggregate of recoveries resulting from psychiatric effort is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. I do not hold with those who believe that alcoholism is entirely a problem of mental control. I have had many men who had, for example, worked a period of months on some problem or business deal, which was to be settled on a certain date, favorably to them. They took a drink a day or so prior to that date, and then the phenomenon of craving at once became paramount to all other interests, so that the important appointment was not met. These men were not drinking to escape. They were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control. There are many situations which arise out of the phenomenon of craving, which cause men to make this supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Bill, both for your service. So we will go back to the bottom of page XVIII, where Lisa began reading. And our batting order for the questions tonight will be Kenny, Linda, Susan, Jamie, Stephanie, and Sheila. And all of you can go ahead and unmute. And our first question, Kenny, comes to you. Why do alcoholic men and women drink?
Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm starting off the chapter with a comment. Okay, if everybody will please go to pages 83 and 84 in your big books. Okay, and put the words, "when I had a few drinks," in front of the 9th step promises. You may be able to recognize the effect the alcohol gets from the alcoholic gets from the first few drinks. So starting on page 83 of the promises. When I had a few drinks, I will be amazed before I'm halfway through. When I had a few drinks, I am going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. When I had a few drinks, I will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. When I had a few drinks, I will comprehend the word serenity and I will know peace. When I had a few drinks, no matter how far down the scale I have gone, I will see how my experience can benefit others. When I had a few drinks, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. When I had a few drinks, I will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in my fellows. When I had a few drinks, self-seeking will slip away. When I had a few drinks, my whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. When I had a few drinks, fear of people and economic insecurity will leave me. When I had a few drinks, I will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle me. When I had a few drinks, I will suddenly realize that booze is doing for me what I could not do for myself. Okay, let's return to the doctor's opinion on page XXDIII.
And I will give you all a moment to get there. Alrighty, so Linda, you have the second question. Have you got back to the original page?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a three-part question. Does the alcoholic understand why he drinks? Does drinking cause problems or injuries, as Dr. Silkworth terms them? And what is the real problem with the alcoholic?
The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false.
Thank you. And Susan, what is normal to the alcoholic?
To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one.
It sure did. And Jamie, a three-part question. A, in the absence of a few drinks, what does the alcoholic feel? B, what can they experience from taking a few drinks? And C, what effect do alcoholics see others experience when they drink?
They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity.
Thank you. And Stephanie, a four-part question for you. A, what happens after the alcoholic succumbs to the desire for a few drinks? B, what is the result of the first few drinks? C, how does the alcoholic feel afterward? And B, what is the national anthem or resolution of every alcoholic?
After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to do it again.
Thank you. And Sheila, a two-part question for you. A, how does the alcoholic manage the resolution to never take another drink, or the unmanageability? And B, to be successful in sobriety, what must the alcoholic experience?
This is repeated over and over. Unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery.
Thank you so much. And Kenny, back to you, and another two-part question. Another two-part question. A, once an alcoholic has experienced an entire psychic change, what happens? And B, what is necessary for this to happen?
On the other hand, and strange as it may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the same person who seen doom, who had so many problems, he despaired over, he despaired ever solving them, suddenly finds himself able to control his desire for alcohol. The only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules.
Thank you. And Terry, you're muted.
Could the few simple rules be the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous?
I think so. And Susan, what did the men who cried out to Dr. Will Silkworth plead for? And please read the entire paragraph.
Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal. Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me.
Thank you. And Jamie, do doctors, if they are honest with themselves, feel adequate in dealing with alcoholics?
Faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy.
Thank you. And Stephanie, what is it when the doctor gives all that is in him?
Although he gives all that is in him, it is often not enough.
Thank you. And Sheila, what can human power not do?
One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change.
Absolutely. And Kenny, back to you with another two-part question. A, can psychiatric efforts help a serious hard drinker? And B, have medicine and psychiatry made such much progress in treating chronic alcoholics?
Though the aggregates of recoveries resulted in psychiatric efforts is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole.
Thank you so much. And Linda, do real or chronic alcoholics respond to ordinary psychological treatment?
Where are we at?
Many types.
Excuse me?
Many types.
And we're on page XX1X?
Yes.
Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach.
Thank you. And Susan, did Dr. Silkworth believe that a real alcoholic could recover by mental control?
I do not hold with those who believe that alcoholism is entirely a problem of mental control.
I have a comment. This is followed by the unmanageability and the powerlessness.
Thank you. And Jamie, in his example, was the alcoholic having a bad time?
I have had many men who had, for example, worked a period of months on some problem or business deal which was to be settled on a certain date favorably to them.
Thank you. And Stephanie, a two-part question for you. A, what insane act did he carry out? And B, as a result of taking the drink, what happened?
They took a drink a day or so prior to the date, and then the phenomenon of craving at once became paramount to all other interests, so that the important appointment was not met.
Does this demonstrate unmanageability?
I think so. And Sheila, do real alcoholics drink to escape?
These men were not drinking to escape. They were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control.
Thank you. And Kenny, you get the last question. What do many alcoholics do to stop drinking?
You know, many situations which arise out of the phenomenon of craving, which cause men to make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight.
Could the supreme sacrifice be suicide? How many stories have we heard where someone took their own life relating to their alcoholism?
Many, many.
Many, many.
Okay, so if you have experience with the portion of the book that we've just read, please feel free to share. And also, please be mindful of your time and that others may have their hands raised and are waiting to share. And a friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. And we're now open for comment, questions, observations, and spiritual experiences based on what was just read. So who's going to be first? Hi, Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. And this right here hit home because it says, there are many situations which arise out of phenomenon of craving, which cause men to make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue. Before that, it says these men were not drinking to escape. They were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control. And then it talks about that supreme sacrifice. And my sister's husband did make that supreme sacrifice. He took he took 40 arthritis pills, and he drank some rum, and he was late. They came in the house and they found him laying on the floor with his mouth open, so he basically went to sleep. And he died in his sleep. And prior to that, he went to my sister's job and he was running around. He was happy. And he said, I love you. He said, and all of this is going to stop. And then he said, I'm going away. He said, I'm going away, And she, after he, then she said, oh, that's why he was doing that, and it tore the family apart. And when I forgot who it was, somebody called me and they said, our Granville died. And I was like, wow. And then I told my son's father, I said, I have a feeling. I said, I bet you it was something to do with drugs. And he was like, how did you know? How do you know? I said, I don't know. I said, but I know him. I said, I know him. I said, I think it did have something to do with that. I thought he overdosed, like maybe he was doing too much and he overdosed accidentally. I thought it was that. I didn't know it was purposely done. It was intentional, And she told him, she said, you drink a lot. She said, you drink a lot and you're out of control. You've been arrested. You put your hands on me, and he did so much. And she found out more damage he did after he died. It was so much, he put her in so much financial debt. But before he passed away, she said, I need you to do something about this. She was like, I have to leave. I have to leave if you're not doing anything about this. He was so out of control. She went to my grandmother's house, and my grandmother looked at her, and she said, are you okay? She said, yeah, and she just sat there. And she said, my grandmother said that my sister had her slippers on. She had an old pair of pants and shirt like what you wear when you're in the house. And her son had his pajamas on. So that means she got up and she just ran. And she didn't tell my grandmother what happened, And my sister did. I remember when I went over to my sister's house because she moved. She bought a house and she went up to Endicott, New York. And she was telling me, because she said, oh, you've been sober a long time. I said, yeah, I've been sober a while, And I asked her a question. I don't know what it was, but it triggered her saying something about her husband that had died. And he died like 1985. And, oh, yeah, she was talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. And she said, yeah, I tried to tell him to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And she said he yelled at her and said, I don't want everybody to know that I'm alcoholic. I'm not going to AA. I don't need to go to AA. And she said he went off on her. He said, how dare you tell me to go there? He said, how dare you tell me to go there around those people? And she said she never said anything to him again, And she said his pride and his arrogance and his stubbornness, And I remember when I was in a meeting, and it was a round robin, and this man turned around and looked at me, and he said, call someone before you pick it up. He said, call someone. He said, because it could be the last time you're going to pick it up. And he looked me in my face. He turned around and looked right at me. And he was like he was the chairperson. And I was just so humiliated. I had a resentment with that man. Like, how dare he? I'm raising my hand every couple of days. I got 1 day, 2 days. Come on, I couldn't stay sober when I first came around. But that resentment stuck in the back of my mind. And I'm glad that man gave me that resentment, because I did call someone. And after I called them and they did that 12-step over the phone and they stayed on the phone with me, something clicked in my head, like an epiphany or whatever you want to call it. And I started getting serious, and I got 30 days after that, and I didn't have to drink again. I didn't have to, and it wasn't that I did have the desire to drink, but I just kept fighting it, and I just kept calling people and making meetings and stuff, but it's a soul sickening disease. It is. It's a very soul sickening disease. And it takes some of us down. It takes some of us down. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. Who's next? Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jim, a recovered alcoholic. I have a number of friends that have died. One drank herself to death. On her obituary, it said that ethyl alcohol was what caused her death. I asked her several times to come to AA, but it didn't happen. I've had friends in the program that after they relapsed, they took their own life. I know one person, he hung himself, another person shot himself. Know people that were found dead in their car. Even as early as 1986, my brother's good friend, his name was Mike Dewey, I was talking at my dad's business. He was at my dad's business one day, and he said he was gonna do suicide by cop, and he did. And he would say, something just comes over me. I'm nuts. And he was one of us. He just never got the help. He never had the spiritual experience. So this is for real, man. And I have 3 brothers still drinking. They've been drinking a long time. I just pray that someday they may have the opportunity that we have had. And this is a for real thing, man. This is a killer. It's a killer, man. I've seen people. I saw them one day, the next day they were gone. I had a guy leave me a message. He said to me, I'm not going to do anything stupid. I was on my way to a meeting. He called me, and it went to my voicemail. I was with another friend, and when I listened to it after, he said he wasn't going to do anything stupid. The next day, I kept calling him, couldn't get a hold of him. Then I found out he did something stupid. He made a permanent decision for a temporary problem, and so good to be here in the meeting, and this is how I treat my disease of alcoholism. I come to these meetings to learn about the disease so I can help other people. Thank you for the meeting.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Trish. Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic, and happy to see all of you tonight. I'm just going to speak to my own personal experience. And I love this chapter, or the doctor's opinion. And I believe that Silky knew more and understood alcoholism better than medical science still does today, even though they know how the neurons fire in our brain and all of that. That doesn't tell me why I drink, but Silky tells me why I drink, because I have an allergy to alcohol. The thing that I love about this reading tonight is he also brings in the spiritual malady through talking about the psychic change, and points out the spiritual malady to us. And then as he goes on and he talks about those who have that business deal coming up and took a drink a day or two prior. Oh, how many times have we said to ourselves, oh, man, life really sucks. A drink could make it better, right? I said that for 23 years. And what that is that's a mental obsession. And in with that comes the unmanageability, because how many times did I drink and get rip-roaring drunk, do something stupid, puke underneath the orange tree? I mean, I can remember my mother holding my hair back, which was as long as Larry's, puking under the orange tree going, I'll never do it again. And next day, turned around and was doing it again. The true simplicity of the unmanageability of my disease, I don't know about your disease, but my disease is a frickin' psychopath. The true unmanageability of my disease is that I failed to manage the decision to never do it again. So moving forward after 23 years and coming off a 18-day run with that and some of alcohol's other cousins, on September 3rd, 1990, I hit this place where I was going to make that supreme sacrifice because I couldn't go on anymore. I knew Alcoholics Anonymous worked. My mother was sober almost 17 years, but I was convinced it wasn't going to work for me. And who would have thunk it? Here I sit 12,761 days later, one day at a time, without a drink or a non-conference approved substance. Because of this book, because of the understanding that I have been given about alcoholism through the doctor's opinion and a spiritual solution. So here's what I want to say to anyone who is new, early in recovery, who is still struggling. The doctor's opinion and the first 43 pages of our book are about one thing and one thing only. Step one. And if you read those pages, or better yet, if you have a sponsor that will take you through those pages line by line and help you understand it all, you will have all the information you need to make the self-diagnosis of the only self-diagnosed disease in the world, alcoholism. And by the time you get to page 44, there are two questions. And I'll end with this. Or they're not questions or statements, but I put them in a question form. If when I am drinking, I cannot stop on my own, or if when I'm drinking, I have no control over the amount of alcohol that I take, I am an alcoholic. I have just qualified me. Step one is done. I need to stop doing the dance on the fence. Am I an alcoholic? Am I not an alcoholic? I am an alcoholic. I've just qualified myself. It's time for me to move on with the rest of the program. So glad you're all here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, Billy.
Hi, everybody. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Billy. This, I'm not going to be able to read it word for word, but paragraph that talks about how the gentlemen think that the payday's coming in and that everything's going to be great in a couple of days, and he goes out and drinks. And I don't think it's just about the payday. I think that includes the bad news too. That were it not for this program. Before I got here, there were stuff going on that I needed to be extra attentive to in my life, and I didn't like that because that brought out the fear monkey. So I would get drunk before I needed to have a specific test taken. I still had to have the test done, but I just didn't want to. I didn't want to know about it. I like to tell the surgeon, you need my body, you don't need my brain present. In other words, I don't need to be conscious for various events that are going on in my life, and that's how it is. 6 years ago today, I had cancer removed. Tomorrow morning I'm going in for an extra mammogram. And I have to hang around to discuss the findings. I am so glad that I can go through this sober. Am I scared? You bet your bippy I am. 24 years ago, my mother died. And the circumstances are so damned identical. And I've shared this fear in the past. Trish, you know about it. When my mother had breast cancer, and they treated it, and they cut her up, they removed her breast. She was on tamoxifen for 5 years. Within 6 months of coming off the tamoxifen, she had cancer again, and she was dead 6 months after that. And they took me off tamoxifen. Well, they said I could keep taking it if I wanted to, or I could stop taking it, because apparently it can cause other cancer if you keep taking it, which I think is ironic at best. So I stopped taking it at the end of January. It's been 6 months. I had a mammogram on August 4th. Now I'm going in for another one tomorrow, a more enhanced mammogram. Notice that deep breath? I went to work today so I could stay busy. So I could stay out of between my own two ears, because this bad neighborhood between my two ears will get me drinking at just about anything that is frightening. I'm going to deal with it like a grown-up, like a sober person, no matter what they say. I don't know exactly what my decision-making will be tomorrow morning, because I don't have all the information yet. So unlike the dozens of people I know who have sponsees, women who have overdosed and died, who have shot their own brains out in their homes, whom I have buried. I look through my phone list, and there's a dozen people I should probably remove because they've all passed away already. Some of them passed away sober. Most of them did not. I don't know why I keep those names on my list. Maybe it's so they keep reminding me. But I'm telling you about this because good, bad, or indifferent, I have to stay sober so I don't get stupid. Thanks.
Thanks, Billy. Keep us posted.
You're muted, my dear.
Come on in, Larry.
Yes, I'm Larry. I'm an alcoholic. I was thinking, well, we were talking kind of before the meeting, I don't know why I'm here. I know I have done research, everybody I grew up with, all my friends, and all my drinking friends and my childhood friends, they're no longer living. I'm really the only person in my past that's alive. And I don't know why God chose me to be living, but I do know that because of it, I choose to live one day at a time to do what I can to help the next person that is like me, to help them get sober. The book says that men and women drink essentially because of the effect of alcohol. And I don't know about you, but I don't really know anybody, any one of us that didn't drink because it did something for us. It took away the pain. It took away our problems at the time. It was a solution for all of us. It met our needs. It gave us something that we were lacking, and therefore we drank. And although we found out in various ways that it was killing us, it was destroying our lives, I found out after I quit drinking even more so how much it was destroying me, because while I was drinking, I didn't feel any of the pain and all those elements in my body and stuff. And then I felt things, and I went to the doctor, and I actually did follow up with checkups and things, and I had cancer, and it was very aggressive cancer, and if they hadn't caught it when they did, I was months before they wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. It would have been stage 4 and gone. There as it was stage 3, but containable. And had it reached, I don't know. I don't know why why am I echoing? I'm going to quit.
Thank you, Larry. Sheila, come on in.
Sheila, alcoholic. I love this meeting. Thank you all so much for the service. And I love that. For me, what stood out were the concept of that we didn't drink to that these men did not drink to overcome a craving, and the idea of the supreme sacrifice, and also the idea of the essential psychic change. Those three things really hit me. So when I began to drink to escape and fill in the holes when I was 14, and create a world, delusional world where I felt like I belonged. Like, when we had the solution with the promises with when I take a drink, that that was who I could be when I drank, you know, and eventually, you know, over many, many years, and I came in after 50 years, it evolved into just an emptiness and a craving, like an empty, dark pit. And I didn't care if I belonged anymore at the end. I didn't care. I just wanted out. And, you know, I wanted to end my life when I was 62. And I only cared about when and where, how I could secure a drink. But at the end, I was so sick I couldn't even drink. I would end up in the hospital. It's just, so, yeah, all I had in the end were the cravings and a tortured soul. So I was so sick. And then, you know, divine intervention happened. One day, somebody who I'd known for 30 years came up to me, and she saw me. I had been drinking in an isolated situation in this little hole-in-the-wall place I was renting. I had been let go from my 40-year career with the public school system. You know, just very angry at the world. And this woman saw me, and she hardly recognized me. And when she realized who I was, she said, "Sheila, oh my God, you're dying. Please try to go to this place." She gave me the name of this room. And it was a room I had been court-ordered to 10 years previously in 2007. And I had paid no attention. I just did the court order, and went out, got on my Harley Davidson at the time. That's what I was doing, and drinking still. I was paying no attention. I just wasn't ready. So that was the divine intervention, divine synchrony that happened. And only a supreme being could have planned that timing or enable me even to drive to the room. I don't remember how I drove to that first meeting, but I found that room. And the irony is, you know, I did want to die. I'd been stocking up benzos. I had like 6 bottles, and I was planning on just taking them all. So I stayed when I got to that room. I did not go to any kind of outside help. I did go through withdrawal without outside help. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I just didn't have anybody in my life or intervention from anyone. And the room was my rehab. I mean, people came home to me. When I got to step 3, I was so ready to give everything to that power, that God in the italics for a reason, of our understanding in the rooms in 3 and 11 in italics. You know, that text feature stands out for that reason. And I had that essential psychic change, and it wasn't overnight. It was a process. I was willing to do anything. And I needed more than man-made programs and theories. I needed full surrender, like step 1, you know, and I had it. I had it day by day, waking up every morning, starting again. And eventually, you know, I couldn't rely on myself or alcohol or anybody else. So I just really solidified that third step. And it took me a year to get through the steps. But for me, with that much time, it was a process. I was told that it's a process, and just let the process happen. I wasn't rushed through. I think as a younger person, I might have been rushed through, but that's what it took. And so, yeah, this room has given me everything. This meeting is great, and this program is my life and my passion. And thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you, Sheila. Glad you're here. Xavier, hi, welcome.
Hey, good evening, Xavier Alcoholic. Glad to check in here. So just wanted to jump in. I always appreciate the doctor's opinion. Where the reading ended with a supreme sacrifice, and the amount of people that I think over time, so many people die from this disease the longer I'm in this program, whether it's suicide or medical illness, related to their alcoholism. It's such an honor and a blessing to be alive today, and for everyone here who's sober, it's such a miracle. And often I forget, how bad things were. It's easy to forget. My wife often tells me, she's in the program too, that, don't let, what does she say? Don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of AA, or like doing AA. And it's always important for me to really have that humility, continue to work with men, bring them to the big book, work with a sponsor who's much smarter than me, and, continue to do readings, prayer, and meditation, and just keep to the basics, especially when life gets difficult. Getting back to the basics is so incredibly important. The other thing is with the doctor's opinion, just the way it breaks down, like the mental, sorry about the background noise, hopefully you can't hear it too bad. The way that it breaks down, like the allergy that happens, the phenomenon of craving once alcohol touches my lips, and this mental illness I have, this obsession that causes me to drink despite, all logic telling me elsewhere. That concept is beyond important, and I think in a lot of ways helped save my life, because otherwise I could see myself drinking myself to death with the insanity of me thinking I'm the solution. If I just had stronger willpower. And if I think I'm the solution, I don't understand the problem. The problem is I'm powerless over alcohol. That I have a powerlessness not only physically but mentally. And if I realize I'm not the solution, then I can look for the actual solution, and the big book tells me how to get there. So just like that little twist, I think is, for me at least, it was incredibly important to have that aha moment. And then I can seek that solution and figure out what that means. And luckily, I have a book that gives me a lot of actionable steps that, help me find that solution on a daily basis, so I don't have to drink one day at a time. So having that process is pretty incredible. And my experience today is it's my baseline. So as long as I'm willing to continue to do the work, I don't have to drink one day at a time. And then I got my 2-year-old who, I get these little blessings here. So it's a real, Alcoholics Anonymous is such a blessing. Everything I have that's good today is because of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm so grateful. So that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Xavier. Good to see you. Hi, Jimmy. Come on in. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Jimmy, and I am a alcoholic. And, I have never heard the promises read with putting a couple drinks in front of it. And, I guess before I got in these rooms or had a spiritual experience, I guess alcohol was my higher power. And I went to it for all my solutions. When I got in to get into the rooms, luckily the therapist I went to believed in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he had heard from my wife and daughter what was going on with me. And so he had a phone number of a man from AA. At the end of our first session, he gave me his phone number, and he said, "It's your choice, but you need to call this man." And luckily I chose to call him, and that man became my sponsor. And I had 4 relapses before I finally put my shovel down and actually accepted that, yes, I was an alcoholic and that I couldn't quit on my own. And I kept missing the we part of the program, I guess. And I was full of self-will. And, the doctor's opinion means a lot to me, and it does explain it. Chapters 2 and 3 in the big book mean a lot to me, too. And my life had become unmanageable. But, I don't think I wanted to fully get truthful and honest. I think in how it works, there's 4 times it talks about honesty and truth. And, I lied to myself constantly. And then you throw fear on top of it. And, in my alcoholic mind, it's a pretty dark place. And, but January 6th of 2021, I finally surrendered it and said, okay, well, let's start. And I, accept that, and I did accept, the first step. And, the second step, I had some trouble with structured religion. I kept missing that we're a spiritual program. And I finally got, over that hump. And, I think step 4 probably, and 5 helped me a lot on healing to accept my past. And it didn't own me no more. But, I didn't have an off switch when it come to drinking. There was probably a lot of times after a blackout, I prayed that I wouldn't wake up. But I did wake up. And, I had some pretty serious health problems too. And that did not stop me drinking. Had a heart attack. Had 2 rounds of blood clots that ended up in my lungs. And, walked through that and said, hey, I'm going to continue drinking. So I don't know why God spared my life through that, but I guess now if I can give back half of what AA has given me to a newcomer, maybe I can, realize why God spared my life. But, thank God for AA. I love this program. I love you guys. It just, we are all miracles. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Jimmy. Glad you're here. Who is next? Okay, I'll come in. I am Trish and I am an alcoholic. And I love the way that the reading tonight started out. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. I certainly didn't. I didn't drink for the taste, but I drank for that effect because I just wanted to escape everything. And then the next sentence, the sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. I lived in that lie because I couldn't tell you what was going on. I couldn't admit to me or to anybody else that I was drinking or that I was drinking too much. So I just continued to lie and lie and lie, and that one lie after another, which piled up on top of another, and then hopefully I remembered what that first one was, and then the fear kicked in, and the paralysis from the fear, and then the drinking more, and restless, irritable, and discontented. Yep, it is a cycle. And there was no way out of it that I could see. But fortunately, my ears and my heart were opened after a time to hear an invitation into the rooms. And I said, okay. And I walked in and I knew I was home. And I recognized the need, even though I didn't realize what it was, but I recognized the need for that psychic change. I knew, in my words, something had to give. And it was either going to be me or it was going to be the drinking. And I'm glad I put the drinking down and it wasn't that I stopped me. But, so many of us have that as a part of our story. And then I love how it talks about how once that psychic change occurs, this very same person who seems doomed, all of a sudden can easily control the desire for alcohol. And not only at that point could I control my desire for alcohol, but I also learned how to live. And I learned how to let others in. And I learned how to be honest. First with you and then with me. But while life was great, it didn't stay great because, of course, I went back to the old thinking behavior, and got just as miserable as I was. The only difference was I wasn't drinking. And then when I came crawling back to meetings, just as miserable, just as homicidal and suicidal, very dry, was once again willing to do what it took to find my way out of that pit, to find that higher power, to have that psychic exchange done not through my work but through God, or through both of us together. And the realization that alcohol is not a problem of mental control, which is always what I thought it was before I got in here. I never understood or never knew that it was a disease, that there was such a big physical component until I got in these rooms. And it's like, that makes a whole lot of sense. Why didn't anybody ever tell me that before? And they may have, I just wasn't ready or willing to hear it yet. I'd been to counselors, and none of them really worked. I wasn't honest with them. I wasn't honest with me, because lying seemed the only way that I knew how to get through life, because it was always cover my butt. But then eventually I found the people who suggested that I walk into these rooms, and I did. And I found my way through the unmanageability in my head, and into the steps, and into service, and into helping others, and then focused more on the service than I did on the steps. But it kept me here until God brought me back to the steps. And just a really quick dig, or not a dig, but just a really quick comment. Jamie and I were in the room one night talking about something and saying men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. And we read the whole paragraph, and it's like, that sounds like a prayer. So we edited it a little bit, and we rewrote it, giving credit where credit is due to this paragraph, to these 2 pages. Jamie put it in the chat a few times, so feel free to copy it, share it, not, whichever you'd like to do. But that was our take on it one day when I was going through something. Don't know what it was, don't remember what it was. But we turned that wanting to drink back into a prayer of, God help me. I want to pray more than I want to drink. I want to keep that relationship with God more than I wanted to drink. And that was the end result. And Larry, come on in before I start rambling even more. You're muted.
Larry, you gotta unmute.
You gotta unmute one of you.
Remember, your computer's not working. Oh,
no,
okay.
It is. That's what happened. My computer started working, and so I had that feedback. That's what happened. I was talking about, I went through some health problems, and me too. Through that process, I really got into the book. I really got into AA. I thought I got sober, and I really took the program. And like what was just shared, the one thing, I got it in my head. I got the program in the head, and it worked quite well for a lot of years. But I wasn't doing what I needed to do. It was head knowledge, and I got suicidal. I wasn't doing the program right. I knew the program, but the program hadn't gotten really into me. And I didn't know how to get the 12 or 15 inches that needed to get from here to here. And it was through some other hard times that did happen, and suicide was one of the things. But today, that psychic change happened. You know, and I'm so thankful that, in this doctor's opinion, they admitted that they were at a standstill, that they were inadequate, that it took something more than human power, human knowledge to make this thing work. It took a change of heart. And that's what I finally got. And I got the wholeness of this program because of it. And today I have a really great life. Working with others, meeting people like y'all, just waking up in the morning and not thinking about having a drink. That's all I got.
Thanks, Larry. Hi, Serena.
Hi, everybody. Serena, alcoholic. I just wanted to, I feel kind of like, boy, this is pretty amazing. And my sponsor and I are working on this right now, the doctor's opinion and step one. And, but I really wanted to just make it really clear that all of you are the reason that I can go into myself and go to my higher power and get some of this stuff done. And my sponsor, I just really, if any of you are forgetting that at all, can I just please make it really clear that you guys, it really is not a me, it's a we. So I really need to make that clear to you guys in case you forget the intensity of that. And I just wanted to say real quickly, I had told a few people before the meeting that there was a beautiful, beautiful guy here doing my windows. It was almost beautiful to watch him. He was such an artist, and he saw my pendant. So he began talking about his recovery. Crack cocaine addict. He showed me his scar. He should have been dead. He had the shot. He was shot, almost dead, and started talking about his higher power. Boy, did he talk about it. And, I think that I was just going to tell you guys, I just wanted to say that, I took it all in. It was absolutely beautiful. Boy, did he love helping. He's very active in helping other men, especially. But, before he left, and, this is so funny because, kind of that thing where men and women hug and there's kind of that distance, Well, I guess I needed the hug that he gave me. There was no distance. Not at all. Man, he brought it in and he said, "Keep going, Mama. Keep going, Mama." And kept pointing towards my son's room. But I didn't know I needed that hug so much. This big, burly black guy just put his arms around me, man. There was no space between us. And I had no idea I needed that hug. So what I'm trying to say is to all of you that it's really, really important that you're here. I've only got 83 days. It's really not that much. And right now it's getting harder. Oh, thank you. It's getting harder. It's not getting easier for me right now. I just, so I just need to remind you guys. So thank you for letting me remind you. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Serena. Glad you are here. Hi, Brian. Come on in.
Hello, my name is Brian, and I'm an alcoholic. I definitely, when I started drinking, it was because I liked the feeling that I got from alcohol, and, I didn't smoke weed at the time or anything like that, so alcohol is a legal way for me to get a nice little buzz and whatnot. And, of course, many years down the road, it basically overtook my life. One thing I was just thinking about as we were all talking, I had a friend that I consider like my brother, and we had a falling out and we don't talk anymore. But a big part of that, was him just saying, like I used to tell him about my drinking and, how I'd black out and whatnot. And he was over in Vietnam teaching. So, he was in a completely different continent. And, he told me, he's like, you might have to never drink again. And I was, gosh, he's going overboard, and he was right. But I mean, I didn't even consider it. I'm like, never drink again. Like, come on, I can slow down, take it easy, not drink as much, whatever. I have to change the way I drink. But, I couldn't even fathom the thought of never drinking again, ever. And ultimately our friendship ended, and he told me, basically I was being selfish, I tell him about my blackouts and whatnot, and, he's like, I have work in the morning and stuff, and, I'm up all night worrying about you, there's a time difference. And I mean, our friendship ended, it was a bit of a misunderstanding, and I have resentment towards him, obviously. But I have come to understand, that he did what he had to do to protect himself. I mean, he suffered from anxiety and whatnot. So me telling him, oh yeah, blacked out and bumped my head on the, hit my head on the bench or on the platform of a train, was for him like, oh my God. But to me, it was like, that's crazy. And, I got through it, whatever, but for him, it was a lot more. And, I think one thing, I came to realize is I just didn't have anything, I wasn't living for anything. I mean, I was working, going through the motions, but I wasn't actually living for anything, and especially I wasn't living for myself. And, it wasn't until I got married that I actually got into any type of recovery or, any type of, program to even consider stop drinking. And, it was more for my marriage than, once again, for myself, and, I think that was a big part of it. If I wasn't married, I might be dead. Because I'd probably still be doing the same things, the same cycle. I was having suicidal thoughts. I'm not the type to do that, but on alcohol and continuing this cycle, this vicious cycle, I mean, who knows where that would have led, because I wasn't living for anything. I was just going through motions. I mean, I would drink on the bad days, but I'd also drink, for the good times, to celebrate. And, I have 20 years of partial memories, half memories, I don't really remember a lot of events. I remember being here and being there, and this person was there, that person, but I can't really remember it in a way where, it's meaningful, because alcohol was always the top of my mind. If there wasn't alcohol at an event, this event sucked. And so that was my motivation, was drinking, where's the next drink? But today, I don't think about alcohol like that. I'm not only living for my family, my wife, my girls, but I am living for myself today, I'm in the gym because I want to be healthy. I want to feel good. I realize that I'm better off of alcohol. I mean, I had all these great ideas when I was drinking, all these things that I could do and wanted to do, and never did any of them, never accomplished any of them. Never could even think that, I could accomplish any of them, because in a way it was BS. It was alcohol-induced dreaming. And now, being off of alcohol, and I can plan, I can be present, I can, if I want to do something, I can actually go after it and do it and really consider it, as opposed to just this pie in the sky, high hopes, alcohol fueled, like, oh, that'd be great, yeah, I could do this, that. And then the next day, it's gone, dissipates. And I think the biggest thing is I'm definitely, living for myself, so that way I can live for my family. And that's a big change, for me, and that's something that helps to keep me sober. Because, yeah, I mean, you can't just obviously not live for anything, but you also can't not live for yourself and just live for others. Because then you're not, that might not be motivation enough. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Glad you're here. Hi, Bill. Come on in.
Bill Alcoholic, thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for your service. And, well, a friend of mine says that there's only two kinds of people in the world. Those that know that they know only a little, and those that as yet do not know that they know only a little. So I am happy to report that I am one of those that knows that I know only a little. That's why I don't have anything against alcohol. I just don't drink it. All I know is that on the 13th of September, the hour had come for me not to drink anymore. And it had not a lot to do with me, as that was what happened. And I was directed back to where I'd gotten 6 signatures at the wonderful groups in Simi Valley. And I didn't put up a fight or a fuss. I just went back there and I found myself in an AA meeting for the right reason finally. And I was ready to learn that I didn't have to quit drinking. All I had to do was substitute you guys for my drinking. That yes, in fact, there is a sufficient substitute for alcohol. And so I was trying to quit, or knew that I should quit, but I didn't know I didn't have the power to quit. That's the problem, see? So it took what it took. I have no idea. I was undoubtedly born this way. What came first, the neuroses or the drinking? Probably the neuroses. Probably born a liar, a cheat, and a thief. Something was different. Something not quite right. It wasn't that I was a bad person, not a criminal, just not quite right. Often it's spoken as, seemed like I didn't get the manual, like I was out sick the day that they passed the manual on how to do life. Something like that. So alcohol became my best friend. And it went on like that for a couple of decades. Pretty standard stuff. And, all I had to do is not fight it once I got here. Don't snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Just learn what you guys have learned. Practice what you're practicing. Don't get too smart for my own good. Don't pick up a resentment. Somebody said something. Somebody did something. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Just be grateful. Be grateful that you made it here, that you survived that situation. You were given the opportunity to survive it. So don't blow it. As many have not made it past their active alcoholism. Many who did and made it here have figured out how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory by, I guess, making this tragic mistake. They no longer needed to go to meetings or be around other alcoholics or practice these principles or be of service. Easy to do, easy to get caught up. When the fear wears off, when the desperation wears off, what's going to be my motivation? I've seen it 1,000 times. You don't have to be around here 30 years to see the new people come in and they're getting better, their color's better, they're smiling. You're in meetings every day and all of a sudden, poof, they're gone. What happened? Well, we know what happened. They may not, but we know what happened. They stopped doing what they were doing. They got distracted. They assumed that they could handle the situation out there without plugging into the fellowship. They assumed. Some of them, it cost them their lives. So I asked to make sure that that doesn't happen to me. So I'm going to keep coming back. Thanks again.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you, everybody, for a great meeting this evening. Terry, would you like to read our closing?
I would love to. Okay, I'm going to read from page 164, our closing for tonight. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you could do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past, give freely of what you find, and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Okay, we're going to close out with the prayer. But first, sorry, I could get my, there it is. But first, since we can't hold hands physically, here at Lppbbsg Primary Care, Big Book, you know, I can't say it all right now, but anyway, we hold our hands up, virtual hands, okay, everybody, except those driving. After a moment of silence for the alcoholic who still suffers and those contemplating that supreme sacrifice, that they find us, that they find a way to us so that we can trudge that road of happy destiny together. Okay, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever.
Coming back, it works. Only if you work it, so work it because you're worth it.
Thank you,
Good
everybody.
meeting, everybody.
Meeting.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much
folks.
for keeping me sober.
Good night.
Good meeting.
Good night, Lisa.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Kenny.
Good to
night,
see y'all.
everyone. Thank you.
Good night,
Thank
Jen.
you. Thank you.
Good to see
Thanks,
everybody.
Sweet